Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare skating out on us early today. He's got life or something. He's got to do a doctor's appointment or whatever. Or like my daughter would go, whatever. So Tyler and I hanging out here till 3 here on the game as I rip my headset out of my little bag. You know, you're still old school cans, which I respect. I went to the earbuds because, and I'll be honest, I still love the old school headphones.
Sure.
But when you got like 8 hairs on your head and that little thing on the headphones presses down on your head, it's kind of uncomfortable because now it's hitting your head.
Well, I've been waiting to talk for these couple minutes because Terry doesn't have his earphones in, so he can't hear me until he actually puts them in. There you go.
Now.
So I couldn't say anything because you wouldn't have been able to hear me.
I wouldn't be able to hear you. Now I can hear you. But yeah, I stopped wearing the old school. I still like the old school headphones.
By the way, round of applause. You showed up on time.
Yeah, I was trying not to, and I did anyway.
You pulled a Wes Mitchell and you walked in the studio as the intro was playing, but still, it's better than your usual 12:05.
Wes is good at that. Wes has a skill.
Wes has it down to a science, to the point where if I start to ask, hey, where's, before I can even get out of my mouth, here he comes.
It's hilarious. If you look up at the clock and it says like 10:59, 45 seconds or whatever, or 50 seconds, he's walking through the door.
I think he stands outside the building and looks at his watch and like, okay,
I think so.
Too soon. All right, 1 minute, let's go.
I think so, too. It's hilarious. It really is. Oh, God. So, all right. Good news if you're a Gamecock fan. Got a running back.
Yep.
Rasul Faison from Utah State. And I've got some interesting numbers as I get my computer out. Again, over 1,100. If you look at regular level 1 numbers, over 1,100 yards last year, about 5.5 yards a carry, I think it was, or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yep.
But then when you look at the deeper dive numbers of other things, like Rocket Sanders was a yards after contact machine, a tackle breaking machine last year, right?
Yep.
So was Faison. They're different type backs, but they both broke a lot of tackles and averaged a lot of yards after contact. So they kind of did the same things, even though it's in different ways. So that's a good thing because, again, if your offensive line isn't what you hope it would be, it's good to have a back who can, guess what, Tyler? Break some tackles.
Yeah, and from what we've seen and heard about Faison so far, and again, we're not necessarily watching Utah State football each and every week, but you can find his highlights on YouTube. He's not somebody that's going to run away from you and kill you with speed necessarily, but it's the mechanics, it's making you miss, those kind of things that he seems to be really good at, very much in a way similar to Rocket Sanders. Now, he doesn't come in here with the same cachet that Sanders did, because, again, Sanders was legitimately one of the best running backs in the SEC back in 2022 in that full healthy season he had at Arkansas. So Faison definitely has a, okay, well, prove it to me at this level kind of thing, because he's coming over from the Mountain West, but a solid add to what is already a pretty decent running back room that add more. We'll see what they can do with that in the offseason, but if you, as the portal rolls along, but if you just had the 4 guys you had right now in Attaway, in Howell, in Matthew Fuller, now with Rasul Faison, I think you'd feel pretty good with that.
Yeah, I mean, Faison in the Mountain West averaged 3.84 yards after contact per carry. Basically, that's out of his yards last year, 68% of them were after contact.
Which, that's good.
Yes. He had an 88 run grade from Pro Football Focus, 69 missed tackles. Rocket Sanders, in comparison, 3.69 yards after contact averaged. 77% of Rocket Sanders' yards last year were after contact.
Yep.
85 run grade, 47 missed tackles. Again, 1 Mountain West, 1 SEC, but just kind of the same type of runners. Hey, by the way, the offensive line grade for Utah State, around the same as the offensive line grade was for South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm looking
in
at
run blocking.
Yeah, I'm looking at their numbers. They're about average in the Mountain West. They were 6th in sacks allowed. Unfortunately, our guy, SEC StatCat, does not do the deep dive analytics for the Mountain West where we can see where the point of contact was for Faison, but it sounds like his offensive line was okay. Not elite, not great. A similar type of situation that we hope is going to improve. Again, we talked about yesterday. We don't know what the starting 5 is going to look like. That's going to be a story to chase this entire offseason, but you hope it improves. But even if it was just okay to average, again, he seems to be okay with running behind that.
Yeah, and that, again, his longest run last year was 37 yards. He's not a guy that's, popping 23 miles an hour. When they put all the fancy electronics on him.
Right.
But he's a guy that, he'll move the chains for you. He'll have a bunch of 10, 12 plays out. But to me, you feel a lot better as a Gamecock fan that you added a guy in the room that has now a history of proven production.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a guy that right now has 1 year of eligibility. If the Diego Pavia stuff continues to push, maybe he gets more. But for 2025, he's here. Again, a featured piece of the running back room that at this point probably sounds like a by committee type approach. Now, somebody in spring practice could set the world on fire and so saying, hey, guess what? Matthew Fuller's now RB1. That could happen. But if you did have to go with the group effort in the running back room, it seems like you have a solid bunch of guys to do that.
Yeah, I mean, teams win all the time with running back by committee today. It's in 1984 anymore. You realize running backs get beat up. And you can rotate 2 guys, 3 guys, and you can be just as good in the run game as if you have that one dude.
And looking
competition. All right, we got guys who have been brought in through the old school high school recruiting ranks. They should be developing. They should be getting better. But you're not just relying on those guys to be your guys. Now you're bringing in guys through the portal, and you're saying, okay, high school recruited guys, portal guys, have at it. And whoever's the best man will win and will get the position. And I like that because we saw 2 years ago, if you just rely on, for the most part, you're hoping someone's going to step up and be next man up and develop and be ready to roll. If they're not, there's trouble. And if you don't have enough depth and you start getting a bunch of injuries, there's trouble. So I like the offensive line, how they're adding depth there, adding depth to the running back room. And we'll see what happens with Terry Webb from Texas State because you need another interior defensive lineman or two. By the way, we went over yesterday. Webb's, and again, it's a lower level league. We get it. But Webb across the board was really good with his grades.
Yeah, he's somebody that, again, would check that box, what you need in the interior defensive line. And, it's a rotational spot. So he's not somebody that has to come in here and be a superstar necessarily. But if he can translate any of those numbers over to what he can do here at South Carolina, assuming they get him, again, because he's not committed yet, that'd be a huge get. And, again, that's one of those areas that we talked about as the season was coming to a close that we knew you're going to have to hit the portal really hard with. So probably an opportunity to still add a couple more bodies there as the 2025 calendar rolls along.
And, of course, South Carolina native Brandon Cissy, who played at NC State.
I think it's Cisse.
Is it Cisse?
Bill and Preston, I believe, got the correct pronunciation, told them, which was Cisse, because
Cisse.
You got to be careful who you're calling Sissy these days.
I tell you, we need pronunciation guides. Is it okay, Brandon? Are we okay with Brandon?
I think you got Brandon.
Okay,
but
Cisse.
I believe it is Cisse.
Okay, he played at NC State, was really good his freshman year, had some injuries.
Now, if that was my last name, I would also tell people it sounded different too.
Well, I'd be going to my family going, can we do something here? Can we change something? There are names, when you see it, you just feel so bad for people.
Yeah, growing up with my last name was tough, but there are worse ones out there.
Yeah, I can see where that go down some dark roads there, bub.
They used to put posters up in the school for the wrestling team and have people's names on it. So mine was the one that got drawn over and on a lot.
Of course.
I'll let you use your imagination on that one.
One day we'll do a podcast. You can throw out all the
got to worry about FCC regulations.
all the nicknames on that. But yeah, so Brandon Cisse, NC State DB, that'd be a nice get as well.
Yep.
If you could pull that off, and obviously Terry Webb too. Wide receiver. Look, here's the thing with the wide receivers. There's been talk of a couple different wideouts, maybe coming in for visits that South Carolina's sniffing around. We'll see what happens. Remember last year they added 4 from the portal and then lost 1, but still had 3 from the portal. And I think it'd be good to add a wide receiver from the portal. Now, are you adding Jerry Rice? Or are you adding, Justin Jefferson? No, but if you can add a guy with a resume of production to go with what you already have, that'd be a nice thing. I mean, right now you're sitting with, Nick Harbor and Jared Brown. You've got a bunch of wide receivers coming in from the high school ranks. You got Mazeo Bennett. Tight end wise, you're hoping Michael Smith can step into that Josh Simon role. Also Faison is what he catch like 22 passes out of the backfield or something like that.
He seems to have a good set of hands.
Because remember, Lennar Sellers near the end of the season started really leaning on Josh Simon and Rocket Sanders as his two biggest targets.
Yep.
Now, our boy Campbell jumped up out of nowhere and made big plays.
He was good for one monster play a game, it seemed like, and should have had a touchdown against Clemson.
Yep. But we saw a lot of throws to the tight end in the back.
Yeah, and, Chris brought up this point in the last hour that you might, because, we keep track of, who's visiting, who they're looking at, and really outside of Casey Concepcion, they haven't really made a run at any specific wide receivers. No, Omega Blake was on there a couple weeks back from Charlotte, again, a former Carolina player himself, but that ended up, not coming to fruition there. But it seems like they're not as dead set on a wide receiver at this point in time, and then maybe because you want to kind of assess what you have in the spring. Again, you've got 12 receivers, it seems like, coming in via this freshman class, and some of them might have the opportunity to fill some of those roles that you need immediately. So you go through spring practice, see where Harbor's not going to be there because of the track stuff, but see where Mazeo Bennett is. These guys, Jared Brown, come back for another year, Ray Jacobs, and see where these freshmen are, and they kind of say, okay, now that we get a lay of this, here's what we need in the portal. Where again, like with Delvon Campbell and Dre Jacobs, you could have those guys after the fact late in the spring as well.
And last time I checked, Jacobs is still around.
He is.
He's still around, and there was a lot of heat about him in summer. And then he got run. He started the opener, right?
Right.
He started a few games, and then he got nicked up a bit.
He had some injuries, and then I don't know if it was just too severe or just, wasn't getting the reps that he needed.
You fall behind.
Kind of fall behind. And again, he came in as a redshirt freshman, like you said, project guy, somebody that you hope is going to be here for a couple of years and can blossom into something as time goes along.
All right, tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip from CLA. Man, this is a large mountain to climb.
At least it's at home.
Yep.
At least it's at home.
Alabama coming into town to take on South Carolina. I know after the Mississippi State debacle on Saturday, for us to sit here and say, hey, there's a way to beat Alabama, you go, there's not there. I'm not saying it's going to happen. You can think it's a long shot, but there is a formula. We'll talk about it next. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're hanging out here till 3 here on The Game. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head as we roll till 3 here on the game again tonight. 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip here in Columbia at 107.5 The Game, and our sister station in Myrtle Beach at 100.3 The Game. Lamont Paris and the Gamecock men host the highly ranked Alabama Crimson Tide tonight. By the way, they're coming off a 107-79 skull kicking of Oklahoma.
A game where they doubled the amount of rebounds that Oklahoma had. Scored 100 points for the fourth time this season, again, against a ranked, previously unbeaten team in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in pretty hot, I would say.
Yeah, and the game before that, they only won 105-82 over South Dakota State. Before that, smacked around Kent State by 17. Yeah, it can get away from you with Alabama. Here's the thing with the Tide. They play really fast. 5th fastest in the country. They're the 4th best offense per Ken Palm efficiency-wise.
Yep.
They're in the top 15 in offensive rebound percentage. So when they miss, they rebound their missed shots at a high rate. They also get to the line pretty good amount. Alabama, in case you don't pay attention to it like you do college football, 44th in the country in defensive efficiency. Is that better than average? Sure. There's 7 billion college basketball programs. But 44 is not a championship-level defense. And right now. But Alabama, one of the things they do, obviously, is shoot a ton of threes. Half of their shots, roughly, are taken from three-point range. But here's the interesting part. Very below-average shooting three-point team by percentage. That's the interesting part of the Tide. They only make about 31.5% of their threes. The average is about 33.5%. What they do really well is they bludgeon you from inside the three-point arc. They're hitting 63% of their two-pointers. That is second in America. Basically, to me, and Lamont Paris is a lot smarter than me, is I'm letting Alabama chuck threes all day. I need to keep them out of the paint. I need to keep them away from driving to the basket, making that extra pass for dunks and easy layups. I've got to make them beat me from three.
Yeah. So build a wall however you can around the three-point line. Force them to the outside. And again, last year, they're actually really good at it. They were one of the best teams shooting from the outside. I think 19th in the country in three-point efficiency. This year, 254th.
Yeah, they're struggling from three this year. But you know what? They still chuck them.
They still do. They're going to put them up. And you know what? It might be a night where they make a ton of them. It might be a night where they don't make many of them. But if you can push them to the outside, force them to do the thing that they're not as good at this year.
And that's the thing. They still love doing it, so they'll keep doing it. If you can keep them from getting by you and getting in the paint or making that extra pass for the easy deuce, and you force them to chuck threes, and they're clanging them and bricking them, that's your opportunity. Now, again, they play really fast. So you do not want to get in a track meet with them. Remember, last year, South Carolina played really well in the first half, kept the tempo slower. But in the second half, Alabama came out and went nuts.
Yeah.
They were making threes. The game started moving at a fast pace. South Carolina kind of fell into the trap of playing Alabama's tempo game, and that game got sideways. I know it's tough because it's 40 minutes, and you got to stay disciplined. But look, if it breaks there, you take it. But you can't push tempo against Alabama because you're falling right into their trap. You got to play it slow. On their offensive glass. Again, one of the better offensive rebounding shooting teams in America. So that's the formula to hopefully get a W against Alabama. Now, hey, good luck implementing it, but it's there.
And look, this is an Alabama team that has incredible size. Last game out, they started 3 guys that were 6'11". You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're going to have trouble beating them down low. So, again, like we said, try and force them to the outside, force them to do the thing they're not as good at this year because, again, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep chucking up shots, and maybe it's a night where they're just not hitting them as effectively. But that's going to be a big key if South Carolina wants to win this game.
Yeah, look, the two best three, the guys are going to take Aiden Holloway's hitting about 38% of his threes. Mark Sears is just a really good offensive player. He's about an average three-point shooter, so he can make them. But also, He makes half of his shots when he gets inside the 3-point line. Excellent from the free throw line. Sears is their best all-around offensive player. That's the head of the snake, so to speak.
Yep.
But besides Aiden Holloway, you let Philbin and Nelson and the rest of these dudes, hey, have that three.
Sure.
I'm giving you a step. Hey, take the three. Because one of the things they do, Tyler, when you watch Alabama, they space the floor so well that even if they're not making threes, because of the space of the floor, it causes you to give them those opportunities to get in the lane and to cut to the basket and to get easy hoops. So, again, you got to stay disciplined. Give them that three. Don't get crazy, don't over-rotate and over-defend the three-point line because they will carve you up inside of it.
And you're going to have to be physical. Something they weren't on Saturday against Mississippi State because they're trying to drive inside. You're going to have to do everything within your will and in your power to prevent them from doing that. So you're going to have to step up in physicality and play the brand of basketball that South Carolina wants to play. Like you said, this is a team that wants to run up and down the court on you. And Carolina got off to an awful start against a team with a medium tempo last week against Mississippi State where it still got out of hand. So this is a team in Alabama that can be up 50-0 on you in the blink of an eye if you're not careful.
Yeah, and the thing, too, is South Carolina last year, when they were locked in on defense, they forced tough twos. They want to force you to take that long two or that tough mid-range two. And that's when they're right on defense. That's what Lamont wants to do. Now, if they could do that tonight as well, because that's not what Alabama wants to do, so that'll be interesting. Right. Here's Nate Oates real quick, cut 15, Tyler. Despite the fact the Gamecocks are coming off a really rough go in Starkville, Nate Oates says they're not looking past the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I didn't even realize we had 3 ranked games after this one. I don't know that they did either because nobody's talked about it. I don't even know if anybody realized that. I just know we got a bunch of ranked games the rest of the year with this SEC. So I feel like our guys have been pretty mature. I thought we had a great practice yesterday. We were off Sunday, so we got after it pretty good yesterday. Just got out of practice today. It was a lot shorter, but I thought it was pretty crisp. I thought they got after it pretty good today. We just didn't go that long. So I feel like they're locked in to what we need to do. I think we've got enough veteran guys to understand the meaning of these games, and I don't think we'll overlook South Carolina knowing how good they were last year. I mean, Clemson, we split with Clemson last year. We're 1-2 against Clemson since I've been here. So for them to beat Clemson's already beat Kentucky this year. That we know they're a good team. Our guys know they're a good team. Occasionally good teams have bad games. I think that's what happened Saturday.
Okay, first of all, what men's bathroom in Tuscaloosa does he have his press conference?
I don't know. That was the best audio I could find.
Wow. I mean, we could understand it, but it was like, wow.
It was definitely the microphone on the table 10 feet away from him.
Crazy. 2, look, Alabama's one of the most experienced teams in the country, too. They're not going to overlook South Carolina. They're going to they're here to come in and come after you. They're not going to go, oh, they got beat by how much in Starkville? That's not going to happen.
This game was in Tuscaloosa. I'd feel a whole lot worse. You got them at home. As you've seen through the first couple days, home teams faring very well in the SEC as of right now.
And look, obviously, you don't want to get off to the start you got off against Mississippi State. But it's not just getting off to a good start. You have got to stay locked in for 40 minutes because you give these guys a sliver. All of a sudden, they're on a 12-0 run.
Yep, and you're not built to come back from that against a team like this.
Not right now, that's for sure. All right, halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. So maybe you just woke up and like, hey, Terry, what the bleep's going on in the world of sports? We'll tell you next here on the halftime show on The Game. All right, just in case you woke up and you're like, I got no idea what's going on in the world of sports. Help us, please, guys. Well, we thought we got away from Black Monday in the NFL, but it was really dark Tuesday.
Little extended.
For old Coach Pierce there in Vegas.
Here's my thing. Why wait till Tuesday? What was wrong with Monday? What was wrong with Sunday? Because Patriots didn't waste any time. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like, especially in today's world where, the coaching cycle goes so fast, don't you want to jump on as quickly as possible? Why did it take 48 hours to determine, we don't want Antonio Pierce anymore?
Well, I think, Mark Davis had to get another bowl haircut.
Yeah, he had to go get a bowl haircut and go to P.F. Chang's.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then come to a decision.
Here's my thing again, and I know, like I'm get off my lawn guy. I know it. It's one thing for fans, because look, it's who we are, right? I always say there's two buckets: there's fans, there's fanatics. But fans are typically not very patient, right?
Sure.
Just that's our nature. We just you suck. Ready? You suck. Get rid of him. Yeah, but he only played one game. Don't care.
I've seen enough.
That's fans, right? I mean, I watched 2 at-bats from that guy.
Yeah.
He's terrible. Send him back to the minors.
He's trash.
So I know that's who we are because, we're emotional and sometimes we're liquored up. I get it. But what I'm seeing now are the people that run professional sports franchises who own professional sports franchises as well are becoming just like fans. Because some of them really, if you think about it, the difference in a lot of the owners today in professional sports, in the old days, a lot of them grew up in the sport or were around the sport, familiar with the business. And now, like for an example, that goober in Carolina that owns the Panthers, Tepper, he had nothing to do with sports.
No.
At all. Again, you're looking, no offense, Shad Khan, he didn't grow up in the world of professional football. So few of them are really like old school football people. But here's the ironic part. The Giants are a mess. And they have some old school football owners. Especially when you have the name Mara on your owner card. But they decided to hold on to their coach and GM one more year to be basically to make sure that they suck. We think they suck, right?
Yeah.
They're going to make sure. They want to make sure.
Because, let's see, you're going into the year without a quarterback. And you still got a ton of money tied up in Daniel Jones. So, good luck.
And really, you're not going to draft a quarterback most likely because of where your position. And there's really, look, let's be fair.
You're setting yourself up for a lost year is what you're doing.
So you're going to go into this thing. You're going to find somebody to quarterback your team. I know, maybe. What's Phil Simms doing?
I don't know.
How's Eli Manning?
Jacoby Brissett seems perfect for this role, right?
Yes. Yeah, Chase Daniels.
Yeah, Bailey Zappi.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen with the Giants. So I guess you're looking at saying, look, there's only 2 quarterbacks that are worth drafting. And to be fair, no offense to Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if they came out last year, they would be graded behind all the first-round quarterbacks from this past year.
Yeah, it's not the richest quarterback class.
So, and you're really, to be honest, you're reaching for those 2 guys.
And a lot of the guys like Milroe and stuff, they're kind of projects too.
Absolutely.
You got to give them the NFL and develop them to a certain point.
So you really have 2 guys that should be taken in the first round, for lack of a better term. And if you're the Giants, you're not going to get an opportunity to get either one of them. So you'll screw it. We'll be patient. We'll bring Dable back. We'll bring Schoen back to GM. And if this thing goes as awful as it's gone the last couple of years, we kick him to the curb at the end of 2025, right?
Yeah, but I just can't imagine that mindset of knowing that you're going into a year that's not going to result in anything. And, hey, Brian, I'd like to live in New Jersey for another 365 days. I would advise to start house shopping elsewhere, though.
Yeah, if they are bringing them back, if you got to bring them back for one reason. You still believe that they can be who they were the first year. That's what you're doing. You can't be doing it for any other reason but thinking, Dable got to the playoffs in year 1. I think we just made some mistakes and misjudgment in the quarterback position and some other pieces and other things. But we believe that the guy that coached us to the playoffs in the first year is still there. We just got to get him back. Okay, fine. I would rather be overly patient for a year than to continue the cycle of just keep hiring and firing people.
And that's something that you and I talked about the other day, that, you know, the Giants have got this reputation now of a revolving door, it seems like, when it comes to their head coaches, and especially for a organization that for a long time was well respected in the NFL and one that, you know, seemed to have its stuff together. You don't want to become that organization. The Browns had become that organization for the longest time, and sometimes just trying to shake off that, you know, moniker of, well, here comes another head coach for the Giants for 1 year, maybe satisfies them. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other part, too, is like, for an example, Mark Davis, your dad was one of the most respected owners, GMs, evaluators of talent. He was even a good head coach before he gave the reins to John Madden. Al Davis is, you know, iconic. Talk about an apple falling far away from a tree. It's not even, that apple got run over by a car.
The apple hit the concrete face down.
Yes.
Got run over a few times, and then, I don't know, covered in paint.
Yeah, the worms wouldn't even eat that apple. I mean, Mark Davis is awful. And, you know, and so I know somebody said, well, Terry, you know, the Bears have the, you know, George Halas's family is still kind of, no. The Bears are a dysfunctional wreck, and they've been for a long time.
And I'm intrigued by the power dynamic. And again, Mark Davis still holds all the cards, but you got Tom Brady in the building now as a minority owner of this team. How much are you allowing him to be involved in this? Because again, that's a guy with a pretty good football mind. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not saying let him make all the decisions, but if he says he likes a guy as a head coaching candidate, might look at him and say, you know, it's not a bad idea.
And look, Tom Brady could end up being a phenomenal executive. He could be. I don't know. But real quick, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, Ozzie Newsome was a Hall of Fame tight end and a Hall of Fame executive. Helped build the Ravens.
Yep.
But, again, the NFL graveyard is littered with a lot of, hey, that guy was a great player. Let's let him be the decision maker now.
John Lynch has done a good job with the 49ers as well.
Lynch, see, a lot of that Shanahan, it's really, the coach is in charge and the GM really answers to the coach in that situation. John Elway did everything right but the quarterback position.
Which is hilarious.
Isn't that bizarre?
I know.
But again, you have Bart Starr was a disaster. Michael Jordan was a disaster. Just because a guy was a great player, don't automatically assume he knows what he's doing.
There is a difference between assessing a defense and making executive decisions.
Now, again, Tom Brady could be great. I'm not saying he couldn't be. The word is, the skinny is coming out of Vegas, is that Tom Brady's going to be heavily involved in the hiring of the head coach. And there's also talk that everybody believes Mike Vrabel automatically goes to New England. Well, not so fast, my friend, because, again, Brady played with Vrabel, and there might be an opening in Vegas. Look, if I'm Vrabel and I'm choosing to go with the Crafts or go with Lloyd Christmas, not that I have so much confidence in the Crafts after watching this Gerard Mayo disaster.
Sure.
But I'll go with the Crafts before I go with goofy Mark Davis and the Vegas Raiders. I don't care if Brady's involved or not.
Right.
I mean, Davis brought in Gruden. That thing is such a foobar. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a show is what it is.
It's a wreck. And
they got a nice fancy stadium.
Yeah, it's a nice fancy town
that, you know, has more visiting fans than home fans.
And let's go to Pierce real quick. Just to focus on that before we jump out of this. You gave the guy nothing at quarterback. Nothing. You didn't give him a great roster.
Aiden O'Connell isn't a competent quarterback. Desmond Ridder.
Oh, God. And then our boy Uncle Rico, quarterback there for a little bit too this year. You didn't give him a quarterback to compete. The roster's not very good, and you fire him? I mean, again, you gave him a donkey to go win the Kentucky Derby.
It's just Mark Davis wasn't forward enough like Robert Kraft to say, oh, put him in a no-win situation, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, bad ownership just. But again, a lot of these owners are becoming like fans. They really are. And it's like, wow. All right, that's what's going on in case you just woke up. Another guy bites the dust in the NFL. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up next at 803-404-6100. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head till 3 on the game. Oh, it's time for the Firehouse Sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, my man?
AJ from Lancaster says nothing wrong with running back by committee plus running back value. It is more a function of O-line play now the defenses are smaller and quicker to combat spread offenses. Makes it easier for even an average running back to make an impact behind a solid O-line. You're not wrong. You just need a solid O-line.
Right. If your O-line is solid, a running back by committee will work because, again...
Will Carolina's O-line be solid?
We'll find out.
We'll see.
Yeah. It's interesting he brings that up about, the way the defenses are built to stop spread offenses. That's one thing, and you're seeing this in the NFL as well. Teams, look, in the NFL, you throw the ball roughly 57% of the time this year.
Yeah.
Which is down a little bit in the last couple of years because teams now build defenses to stop passing games. So now you're smaller. You're smaller and faster. So now a couple of these offenses have gone, are you smaller now? We're going to run the ball. I mean, Philadelphia runs the ball like a 57% clip. There are a lot of teams around that 50-50 now that it was 60-40 for a bit, but it's dropped because teams are going, what we can do against these smaller defenses? Run them over.
Time is a flat circle. One trend goes out the window, another one comes back in. It's an ebb and flow. We're not going to get back to the 80s and 90s where it was just 3 yards in a cloud of dust and handed your bruising back, 70% of the time, but the running back is starting to reemerge in the NFL, it seems like.
And that will be until defenses adjust and put some players on the field to stop the run game. Then you know what the offense is going to do?
Start passing it more.
They're going to throw it again. Because right now what a lot of teams are doing in the NFL is they're playing deep safeties.
Yes, which is what's, got Mahomes this past year or so because he can't hit the deep ball like he used to.
Well, they've taken, and really it's the Patrick Mahomes defense because teams are like, you know what, we're going to force Patrick Mahomes to dink and dunk and beat us. We're not going to let Patrick Mahomes throw lasers 40 and 50 yards down the field anymore. And to that point, this is very interesting that you bring that up. And I got to do this. I love Pro Football Focus. I'm glad I actually pay for this. I'm glad I'm actually paying for this.
Yeah, my annual yearly sacrifice to pay for it is coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, friend, because their sacrifice is getting more and more expensive.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, you know how many balls Patrick Mahomes has completed this year over 20 yards?
I'd be willing to guess less than 10.
You're close, 12.
12.
And he wasn't very good at it when he did throw. Patrick Mahomes throwing 20 yards plus down the field. Patrick Mahomes we're talking about now. Completed 26% of his deep balls this year. That's bad.
Oh, yeah.
12 of 46. He only attempted 46 balls over 20 yards. That's only 8% of his total throws. You go back to when Patrick Mahomes had Tyreek Hill, or even the year after Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes was still taking shots down the field. Teams said, oh, no, friend. We're going to play 2 deep safety. Heck, against Kansas City, you played 12 deep safety. And you're going to show us that you can go 10, 12, 14 plays down the field on us.
Yeah.
We're going to force you to be patient.
Now, still very talented quarterback, still very capable of beating you in those levels too. But like you said, you took away what his best asset was, and that was throwing the ball really deep and having a good talented wide receiver that could catch the ball and then carry the ball the other 30 or 40 yards into the end zone.
Yeah, so the point being is teams are playing these 2 deep zones all over the NFL to take away the explosive play. So now offenses have to adjust. Some of these offenses, like, Philadelphia, for an example, they're like, okay, fine. You're going to take away our deep ball? Then we're just going to give the ball to our running back, and he's going to bludgeon you for 2. It might not be 30 yards a pop,
sure,
but he's going to, navigate the ball down the field for us. Now, still, the passing game is always going to be the better route to go if you really want to have an explosive offense. But to get teams out of these defenses that they're playing now, some offenses are running the football. And now to the point of what the texter said about the spread offenses in college, it's the same effect, but just different because it's college. All these teams are spreading you out. 4 wides, 5 wides. You need smaller, faster defenders on the field. Some SEC defenses, linebackers weigh as much as safeties in the NFL anymore.
Yep.
So what can happen, wow, your guys are kind of light. We're going to run them over. And it's just the way, like you said, things always flow back and forth depending on adjustments and things of that nature. Now it's the offense's turn to adjust to what the defenses are doing to try to stop offenses. Excellent text. We appreciate it. 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse subtext line. Speaking of football, we're going to talk football in the 1 o'clock hour. Another Gamecock is heading off to the Senior Bowl. We'll get into that. That makes 3 now that will be there. We'll talk about that. Also, James Franklin discussing what Notre Dame should do right in front of Notre Dame, which I thought was kind of interesting. We got a lot of football to get to in the 1 o'clock hour. Plus, Mike McCarthy can't escape. We'll get into that next here on The Game. Oh, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. I appreciate you hanging out with us as we cook this baby up until 3 here on the game. We do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. I believe we have tickets for tonight's basketball game, Tyler.
Okay.
I think we do. I'm going to double check and make sure, but I think we do.
Probably should. It'd be.
Yeah, I don't want to give away tickets we don't have.
Tickets we don't have.
Yeah, that's not good. So we'll check and give them away before 3 if we have them.
Okay.
So that's tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip right here on the game in Columbia and also our sister station in Myrtle Beach. 2 days now, roughly, 7:30 Friday morning. We'll be giving away the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest, $1,300.
So it is Friday.
Friday, 7:30.
Okay.
7:30 on Friday.
Friday.
This Friday.
This Friday.
7:30.
Okay. I will update our promo sheet.
It says, it says Thursday.
It does say Thursday. That's why I wanted to specify.
Should be Friday.
Should be Friday. Okay.
Yes, Friday, 7:30. So go to 1075thegame.com. You can register. Simple, easy, boom, done. And you might win $1,300.
Yes. Now, you could have won that money at some point during the season, but as close as they came,
Couple
not
times.
Quite. Couple times. Not quite.
Could have had one in the Citrus Bowl if Kai Kroger puts a little more zip on it.
Yeah.
Remember, we had the one that was called back early in the season on the penalty. That wasn't Old Dominion, was it? The one that was called back on the penalty? I think it was the opener.
Maybe it was. I've tried to block that game.
It was at the illegal man downfield penalty.
That's right. I tried to block that game from my memory.
so
Had the block punt against LSU.
Yep.
That could have turned into one. Yeah, close a few times, but not quite.
So we'll give that away Friday, 7:30 here on the game. All right. So TJ Sanders is now going to be at the Senior Bowl along with Kyle Kennard and our boy Knight. And I think that, look, that place you shine really during the week at the Senior Bowl.
It's about the evaluations, the drills. They'll do some measurement and testing there before the draft. So that's where the game's important at the end of the week, but it's really about what you do Monday through Friday.
Yeah, look, and I think Demetrius Knight could really help his draft stock. I think, obviously, Kennard and Sanders are looked at as guys at second round, it feels like. Maybe late first, just depends. But this is where a guy like Demetrius Knight can really push his draft stock up. You go out there and you kill it during the week in the practices against the other All-Stars, and you get scouts to evaluate you every day at those practices. And then, in the game, if you can add to your resume of the week, great. But so 3 Gamecocks, Demetrius Knight, TJ Sanders, Kyle Kennard at the Senior Bowl. Because, again, all you got to do is go to, NFL.com, ESPN.com, CBSSports.com. I live in my parents' basement.com. Everybody's giving you daily scouting reports from the Senior Bowl.
Sure.
So it's good for South Carolina to, have 3 guys there who can help themselves. I think Knight can really help himself. I really do.
Yeah. And, again, he's a guy that's thought to be later to mid-round pick kind of thing. But again, when you get in there and get to work with some of these scouts, do individual drills, that can raise his draft stock. With guys like Kennard and even Warrior Sanders, they can only go so high. They're not going to work themselves into being top 10 picks or anything like that.
I think those guys could, by having a good week at the Senior Bowl, they're in the conversation of a little bit higher in the second round or, like, again, that late first round if somebody really likes them. But no, you're right. They're not going to put themselves into the first half of round 1. They're not. Now, Knight could get himself up possibly a round or 2.
Sure.
Because, right now, if I was sitting in a draft room and we're in the 4th round of the draft and I need a linebacker with speed and athleticism and I've watched Demetrius Knight's tape, I'm snagging him in the 4th round. It's easy for me. I think this guy, as the year went on, he got better against the run. He was good against the pass early on. He can blitz a quarterback. He's fast, diagnose some plays and cause some havoc. There's a lot there to like with Knight. And if I don't look, you never know once you start getting out of the first 2 rounds. But I think Demetrius Knight could have a nice NFL career.
Yeah,
I really do. If nothing else, a special teamer with his athleticism and speed. If nothing else, He can hang around and play special teams. But I think he's going to go on the field as a linebacker
Yeah,
in some way, shape, or form in the league.
Look, if you're a good tackler, you can hang around the league for a long time.
I like his game. Now, it's going to be interesting to me to see these scouting reports from, all these scouting services and what they think of him. But the more I watched him last year, the more I just really liked him.
Yeah, now obviously, good head on his shoulders, mature guy, again, drives a minivan, does chores before practice, the whole 9 yards. So,
Loves going to Joanne Fabric with the woman.
yeah,
He's a good
whoever
human
ends
being.
up picking him up, I'm sure, is going to love the guy.
Is he in those Progressive commercials?
Ooh, you're acting like your parents, that one?
Is he that mature?
Man, you know what? Well, we're not going to have a chance to talk to him between now and then, but somebody should have asked him, like, hey, what's your, habit of things that your parents did that you're now doing as a parent?
I know. Do you have that goofy dad barbecue apron?
Do you use the line, we got food at home, when your kids are asking for McDonald's?
Right. So yeah, and that's the thing with Knight, that one of the things that will probably hurt him is his age.
Yeah.
It would. I mean, in the NBA, it's a killer. It's a
Sure.
killer in the draft. It's not as much a killer in the NFL, but still,
I feel like
his age could
feel
be
like
a thing.
with later round picks, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, I mean about him
Yeah.
being up higher in the
Okay,
draft.
I guess. Because, if we're talking first round, sure.
He's
They want to take a spry 20 or 21-year-old.
Yeah, because again, you're looking at by the end of Demetrius Knight's let's say he gets drafted in the 4th round, he'll have a 3-year contract. Until they have to make a decision on 3 years in, you got to make a decision on Knight's deal.
Yes.
What's he, 24?
I think so.
So let's say he's 24 by the time he plays in the NFL. So at 27 is when you got to make a decision on what you're going to do about him contract-wise. That will be something that can hurt you in the draft to some teams. That wouldn't bother me in the 4th round if I see Demetrius Knight.
No.
Wouldn't bother me. Now, again, the 1st round or 2nd round, you're going, but in the 4th round, that's not bothering me. Kennard's what, 22, 23?
I believe so. I need to check some ages here.
Yeah. Again, it's not as much of a thing in the NFL and the NBA. Dalton Connect fell in the NBA draft because of his age. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, I'll take that dude who can make buckets on all 3 levels. I really don't care what his age is. But some teams wouldn't take Dalton Connect because of his age.
That's why they drafted Bronny, because he's so young, right?
So young. It's the only reason.
Nothing to do with the last name.
No. If he was Bronny Mikulski, he would have got drafted there.
Yes, the Lakers would have drafted Bronny Nagolsky.
Absolutely. All right, college football playoff is inching up on us tomorrow night. Penn State, Notre Dame. And James Franklin talking to the media today. Was it today or yesterday? With Franklin. Was it this morning or yesterday?
So they had their presser this morning for the
And
Orange
Franklin
Bowl.
basically was sitting there with Marcus Freeman, who, by the way, is twice as big as Franklin and totally yoked.
A lot better looking, too.
Absolutely. It's not even close. James Franklin's got that radio face. Just like we do. And basically Franklin was like, we're representing our 2 conferences. Oops. I'm representing my conference. And then he went on to say, no offense or whatever to Notre Dame or Coach Freeman, but at some point we all have to be in a conference. If we want to try to make this stuff as uniform as possible, as fair as possible, we've all got to be in a conference. And, Notre Dame just looked over at James Franklin and goes, A, why don't you win a big game against a top 5 team before you talk? And B, hey, dude, we got millions of reasons why we're not in a conference.
I was going to say, are you getting paid millions by one TV entity for just your games? And if you did the math, if Notre Dame decided to join the ACC and left behind their NBC contract, they would be losing a ton of money. By the way, that deal, I think, is up either this year or next year. It's set to double. They could legitimately making SEC or Big Ten money on their own as an independent. Why would they ever join the ACC?
I remember last year at this time in the conversations, there's only 2 reasons to even talk about joining a conference if you're Notre Dame. A, the TV money, because at that time your TV deals weren't that lucrative. And B, are we going to get shut out of the college football playoff? They're not going to host home games. Maybe not.
So we know this structure can change.
Mm-hmm.
This year, a little clunky. A lot of conversations going into the offseason. Do you give first-round buys to the conference champions? Do you just seed 1 through 12 and go from there? A lot's going to change that I think is going to benefit Notre Dame.
I'm seeding 1 to 12.
That's what I would do.
That's just me.
And, look, I get why they went about it this way, but as we saw, did Boise State deserve a first-round bye? Did Arizona State deserve a first-round bye? No, by letter of the law, they got it, and that's okay, fine. But that's going to change, and if things were different in the next couple of years, I think Notre Dame's in a more advantageous spot compared to this year.
And so the things that everybody was going, Notre Dame's got to join a conference. Remember, they had talks with the Big Ten. The ACC was chasing them around, drooling. It was kind of uncomfortable and creepy.
They're the ACC's rich cousin that doesn't like to come to the family reunion.
Doesn't want anything to do with them until they have to.
Exactly.
Right?
They come to Christmas because they have to, but other than that, that's it.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, there were conversations, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame stayed independent, and now they're going to get more TV money, and they got no reason to be in a conference.
By the way, let's look at the tumultuous state of the ACC with its own members trying to actively leave. You think they want to be a part of that? No.
Ready? What? Hey, guys, why don't we grab our suitcases and go stay in that burning building?
Yeah.
The one everybody's run, the people want to run from.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. So they're not going to join a conference just for the good of the cause because they don't have to. And it's really their best interest if they can get the TV money anywhere near what Big Ten or SEC is making. They have no reason to give up their power, their leverage, or their independence. They just don't.
Look, it drives people crazy, and I get it because Notre Dame has gotten a lot of special treatment for a long time, but they're a huge brand. They are a brand outside of just the realm of college football. They are known worldwide because of the name, the association with the Catholic Church, those golden domes.
That cool leprechaun.
The cool leprechaun. They are a big brand.
Yeah. And that's just life. So, again, this is the other part about college athletics. You're never getting a level playing field. You're just not. Things can only be so fair because everybody looks out for their own best interest.
You can pose the question to anybody that says, why doesn't Notre Dame join a conference? Okay, if your school was on its own and making comparable money compared to these other Power 4 leagues with its own television contract where you are the sole one on TV with that contract every single week, would you pass that up?
Well, let's make it in life. Let's say you are self-employed and you make just as much money self-employed as you would working for a company with a lot of rules and regulations. Where are you going?
Self-employed.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You set your own rules, you set your own regulations, you set your own work hours, your own time off. You basically run your own show. Notre Dame is that they own their own business.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be part of your company.
Listen, they've been dealing in the business of college sports for a very long time, and they do it very well. And I know most people don't like Notre Dame, and look, I don't love them either, but I get what they do. I get why they do what they do, and they're very good at it.
And they're smart. They've got all their stuff in the ACC except what?
A membership, or full membership. They're in the other sports, but where the money really comes from football, they're like, we're good.
Yeah, we're okay on our own.
Well, you want to give us 5 teams to play every year? Okay, that'll help us fill out our schedule.
And that's what it is.
That's fine.
And then they move on with the rest of it, and they pocket all their money. And they get a little bit of something from the ACC.
Yep.
They get their something from NBC. And once some of these other this NBC deal will populate even better coming up once it's over, blah, blah, blah. So, James Franklin, I get you, but it ain't happening.
It's because he was intimidated by how handsome Marcus Freeman was.
The guys like, Cliff Kingsbury, they're just so dreamy. You're like, what is it? They put you in a trance.
I'm skimming through the press conference. It is kind of funny to see them sitting next to each other.
All right, so that all right, real quick. I will get back to it. No, I'm not going to do it real quick. You got your pick ready for that game? You ready yet?
Oh, I'm ready.
I will talk about that coming back. Also, what's trending, now what's trending at 2, we're still doing football in the 1 o'clock hour. So we will talk about, maybe a little picking for that game tomorrow night. And also what's going on in the NFL with the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy. That is coming up on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. All right, we are rolling football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Here on the game, real quick, we got a college football playoff game tomorrow night. Obviously, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. But, Notre Dame, Penn State, Irish right now are a 1.5 favorite. If you look at Billy Connolly's SP Plus analytic rankings, they're even pretty much all the way across the board. Penn State's special teams are, neither team's special teams are anything to write home about, but Penn State's are better. But offense, defense, overall, they are one line away from each other on all the categories. Who you got?
I got Notre Dame. Again, I was impressed with what they did last week because I thought they were outmatched from a physical standpoint going into that game, and they shoved Georgia around for 4 quarters. And that is a team that if you force them to throw the football, it's going to be a problem. But if they can play from ahead, if they can keep chewing the clock, if they can get some takeaways on defense, no reason they can't beat Penn State.
I haven't made up my mind yet. Here's my first thought. My first thought is these are two teams that are good on defense. They can both run the ball. But the difference is that Penn State has a better passing game. That tight end's a problem, Warren.
Yeah.
He's a problem. He's a matchup.
Second most receiving yards in the Big Ten behind Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah. I mean, he is an issue. There's no doubt. Drew Aller is a better thrower of the football than he was in 2023. My first thought is it's going to be a lower scoring game. And obviously, if Notre Dame gets red zone turnovers, that's their wheelhouse.
Yep.
Penn State doesn't really turn the ball over, though. And I feel like if this plays out the way these two teams typically, how they roll, the fact that Penn State can throw the ball better than Notre Dame is where Penn State will get them. But that being said, how many wins over top 5 teams does James Franklin have? One. He's 1 in 18.
And even really to this point, Penn State's had the easiest path.
Yes.
They dispatched of SMU pretty easily. And, again, congratulations to Boise State. Did what you needed to. But Penn State was the much more talented team in the Fiesta Bowl. And I know they got it up to 17-14 at one point, but Penn State never lost control of that game.
No. They've had the easiest road. They haven't beaten anybody where you go, oh, look, that Notre Dame win over Georgia was impressive. It just was. So you give Marcus Freeman and his squad a huge attaboy for that win, because most people didn't think they would win that game.
No.
And I even said, I'm sitting here, you and I and Elijah on the Citrus Bowl pregame show. I was like, look, we can sit here all day and compare offenses and defenses and special teams and this and that and that and this. I just know one thing. One coach has a championship pedigree, and the other one I got zero clue about. I gave a huge intangible advantage to Georgia.
Sure, a lot of people did.
And obviously, how'd that work out?
And again, going into that matchup, much like, we're knocking Penn State for not winning big games, Notre Dame had not won a big bowl game since the mid-'90s when Lou Holtz was there.
Yes.
It had been a long time. They had perennially been a team that got to these big stages and failed. And a lot of times, embarrassingly failed. Getting beat by 4 touchdowns in the national championship by Alabama. There was no reason to think this was going to be any different, and it was. And congratulations to them.
You give them their props. And so maybe, just maybe, as I'm trying to figure out, because I think this game is so even across the board, maybe the fact that we see James Franklin's resume against top 5 teams. Marcus Freeman's just starting out. And what we saw last week, that's already a bigger win than James Franklin's ever had, right?
Yep.
So I'm still tossing it back and forth. I really am. So, but I think it's an even football game.
I hope we get a good game.
I just want something close.
I don't think Friday night's going to be a down-to-the-wire game. I hope this one can at least be entertaining.
I'll say this now. I already know I'm picking Ohio State to beat Texas and cover the 5.5. I don't know how you stop that machine. There's only 2 ways to stop that machine. One, for real, kind of, and one for fun, but maybe not. There's only 2 things to stop Ohio State. A, Ryan Day, their head coach, does something.
Yeah.
B, Texas wears Michigan's uniforms.
Or you find a way to keep Jeremiah Smith locked in his hotel room.
Like, what are you talking about? Like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective?
Yes.
Kidnap
yes.
Smith?
Exactly. only for a couple hours, only until about going Central Time, so about 10:30 Central.
Yeah, I just think.
Then he mysteriously reappears. Wow,
Yeah.
crazy.
I just think Ohio State is on a heater like nobody's business.
Again, they look a lot to me, and obviously LSU did it over the course of the entire year, like the 2019 LSU team, who just dispatched of everybody by seemingly a million points. And, they went to the SEC championship game, ran over Georgia, went to the Peach Bowl, ran over Oklahoma, went to the national championship, ran over Clemson. Like, nothing could slow them down. And I know it's a smaller sample size, only 2 games. There's always that thought in the back of your mind that we could see the Ohio State that played Michigan, but if they keep playing like this, there's nobody that's going to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, look, they lost by 3 in Eugene, Oregon.
Lost by 1.
That's 1. I thought it was 3. Lost by, because remember, Howard fell down. They could have gotten position to kick the field goal.
And by the way, if they get that timeout, kick the field goal, they would have been undefeated going into the Michigan game. And maybe they don't lose that game then. I don't know.
So they avenged the loss to Oregon in the best way possible in the playoff, and they kill them. That was, cover the kids' eyes. That was such a beatdown. That was a painful beatdown. And look what they did to a really good Tennessee team. No one has a more impressive resume since this football playoff has started than Ohio State.
We were looking at it when the bracket came out, and for one said, well, it's unfair that Ohio State theoretically would have to play Oregon in the second round, but it's also like, well, dang, that's the hardest path to get there. Going through Tennessee, which, again, we thought was a good team going to the playoff, and then playing Oregon, passed both tests with flying colors.
And, real quick, one of the other look, we look at Will Howard, the starting quarterback at Ohio State, and I've done this. You kind of brain cramped against Oregon. You were awful when asked to step up against Michigan. You got all these weapons around you. Come on, dude. It's funny. You look at his numbers on throws over 20 yards. He's hitting almost 60% of his throws over 20 yards. And again, he's got one guy that could be a first-round pick in this year's draft, and in a couple years, a guy that might be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And on intermediate throws, he's hitting about almost 65%.
Yep.
So we just don't give him credit because of all the weapons around him. Look, is Will Howard going to play in the NFL? Most likely no, not as a starter. But, those numbers with those weapons have been pretty solid this year. Better than Quinn Ewers' numbers.
Absolutely.
Who I just think is vastly overrated. Really quick, is it 1, 2, or 3 bags that Texas is going to give Quinn Ewers to go away?
They have the resources for 3 if they need it.
Because look, I'm not going to say there's no way, because we see things today and we go, wow, I never saw that coming. I would be highly surprised when Texas runs on the field to start the 2025 college football season if Quinn Ewers runs on the field as a starting quarterback.
I'd be willing to bet that's a no. Now, he might want to play more college football, but not in Austin.
Exactly.
Like, we've seen a high-level quarterback in Dylan Gabriel want to go play closer to home. Okay, Oklahoma didn't fight for him to stick around. You can advise them to seek opportunities elsewhere because it seems like, in the small sample size we've seen, Arch Manning's going to be pretty good.
I think,
and if you don't leave, he's going to go.
Yes. Arch Manning just said what was in the last week. He's not planning to go in the portal. He's not, because he plans to be the starting quarterback at Texas. Now, Quinn Ewers says he's coming back. Guess who's going in the portal?
Yeah, Arch Manning.
Yeah, because
he only has to play 1 year and go to the NFL.
Arch Manning, the entire Manning timetable was being set up for next year.
Yep.
The only person that can screw that up is Quinn Ewers for Texas. So my feeling is it'll be like, here, let's throw another monkey wrench in it. Let's say Texas wins a national title. I don't think they will. Quinn Ewers wants to come back and play for the defending national champions.
Be an interesting conversation.
That's juicy. Sure. That's juicy right there. All right, football on the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We will get back, get you caught up on what's going on with the Gamecocks and the transfer portal. And Mike McCarthy doesn't, tomorrow, in a week, he won't have a contract with the Cowboys, but the Cowboys won't let him talk to anybody else. We'll get into that next as well in the halftime show. Football in the game. What we're talking about here on the game is football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We are rolling this baby up until 3 o'clock. All right. Mike McCarthy has a contract running out in Dallas. And we'll see what's happening. The Cowboys and McCarthy haven't reached an agreement on a new deal. The Bears, the Chicago Bears, hit up the Cowboys saying, hey, we'd like to talk to your boy about our head coaching job. Rumors were McCarthy was interested in talking to the Bears, and the Cowboys went, no. Nah, we're good. Which I thought was interesting. Very interesting. And then there's some scuttlebutt and dirt that McCarthy and the Cowboys are working out a new deal. And look, I get it. Cowboys are 7-10 this year. But before that, with 36 wins in 3 years for McCarthy, Mike McCarthy's biggest problem, besides some of his awful game management, is the fact that the Cowboys are 1-3 in the postseason under McCarthy. That's the problem. I mean, the regular seasons up until this year have been fine. Double-digit wins, trips to the postseason. But in the playoffs, the Cowboys go thud. This year, 7-10. I mean, starting quarterback is out. He's injured, other injuries all over the team on both sides of the ball. A flawed roster to begin with, built up by your general manager. The owner should have a real talk with the general manager of the Cowboys. A real talk. That GM killed him. The owner, maybe the owner should talk about maybe getting a new GM. Oh, that's right. The GM and the owner are the same person. So, really, if you look at McCarthy's work, how much of this is Mike McCarthy did a crappy job? I mean, he has to be responsible in some way, shape, or form. For part of him, he is the head coach, and the buck stops with you. But when you're given a flawed roster by the owner/GM, and then you have injuries, a lot of them on the flawed roster, I don't know what you expect. I believe McCarthy will come back. Do I think Mike McCarthy? I think Mike McCarthy gets kind of a bad shot. I don't think he's as woeful a head coach as people want to make him out to be. Dude was a head coach, won a Super Bowl. Guy won, 36 games the 3 previous years with the Cowboys. Guy made the playoffs a ton in Green Bay. Made the postseason in Dallas 3 straight years. He's a good coach. Is he great? No, but he's good. You are not going to get a high-level NFL head coach with a resume and a track record in Dallas because none of them want to deal with Jerry. Mike McCarthy might be the best head coach you can get in Dallas. You look at the resume, you look at the track record, even in Dallas. And really, what head coach is going to be crazy, wild, successful there anyway? Because, once again, you got to deal with Jerry. I think the Cowboys and McCarthy will get something done, and that'll move on. By the way, I do think it's funny because, again, I understand. Up in my beautiful, spacious office, I have a TV in there, and pretty much it's running on ESPN all day long. And they did a thing, Tyreek Hill, the Miami Dolphin wide receiver, was talking Sunday about, he's out of Miami and blah, blah, blah. Do I think he's really going to leave Miami? I don't know. But one of the things they put up, was it today or yesterday, would the Cowboys get Tyreek Hill? I know that the ESPN is dying to talk about the Cowboys all the time because they are America's most polarizing team. I get it. But it's just so funny. Every player, could the Cowboys get him? Every coach, could the Cowboys get him? It makes me laugh a lot. It just does. All right, South Carolina in the transfer portal. Obviously, if you haven't heard yet today, getting running back Rashul Faison. That's a good get at Utah State, 1,100 yards last year. Guy is a tackle-breaking machine, a lot of yards after contact. The Utah State offensive line, when it comes to run blocking, graded out right around the same as South Carolina's. So Faison got used to breaking tackles, getting yards after contact. He's a different type of back than Rocket Sanders, but still he has kind of like the same statistical resume. A lot of his yards, most of his yards are after contact. And he broke a bunch of tackles. So a good get for South Carolina. It just really is. You had a guy with some past production and experience to go with Howe and to go with Attaway and to go with Fuller. I think I just think it's a good snag for South Carolina. Nothing new on Terry Webb, the Texas State defensive tackle. He was in for a couple days. He's got offers from Auburn, North Carolina, SMU, and others. Not sure where that whole thing is going to go. But if you could get Webb, that'd be great because now you bring in Webb out of the portal. You've got Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy coming out of the portal. Xavier Hardy from the JUCO ranks coming in. You have Monkel Goodwine from last year, and you have Nick Barrett. So now you built up a nice possible, once again, rotation in the interior of your defensive line. So we'll see where that goes. Brandon, we say it's Cece, like Cece's Pizza?
I believe it is Cisse.
Cisse.
So the letter C/SAY.
Okay.
I believe.
We
which
believe
again,
that.
if that was my last name, I'd tell people to say it that way
I
too.
would too.
Because you probably had to grow up with a tough
Sissy.
upbringing on the playground.
Sissy.
Hey, here comes that
Sissy.
sissy.
Hey, look, it's Sissy. Yeah, it's a lot of fighting.
You know what? Your teacher can tell all the other kids it's Cisse all they want. They're going to read it and see sissy.
They're
They're
gonna
going
see
to go
sissy.
with that.
Well, yeah, we were talking about your last name and how much fun kids had with that. There was a stupid song by Johnny Cash. I remember they'd play it, like my older relatives would play A Boy Named Sue.
Yes.
And at the end of the song, you know, the boy named Sue's fighting with his dad, and they're beating each other up. And basically the dad said, I named you Sue to make you tough.
Right.
No, thanks.
Thanks, Dad.
I'll pass, Dad.
So I had a wrestling coach in high school that apparently there's a movie called So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it. He talked about it all the time, but apparently there's a older man in the movie that says heed instead of head. And he's
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, he's like, you should do that. I'm like,
Heed.
well, it's kind of past that point. I've actually had a substitute teacher mispronounce my last name that way before. And I'm
Really?
like, out of all the names on this list, and I went to high school with some people with some weird names, my name's the one that you got
You
wrong.
messed up head?
You messed up head?
Really?
Really?
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, you got to look up and go,
Come on.
that's the English teacher. Anyway, so nothing new from the transfer portal except obviously a really nice pickup, snagging Rashul Faison from Utah State. All right, real quick. Oh, do we have time for that one? Now that I've done that, no, we don't. We'll try to get to it, though. Some of the sound talking about the future of the college football playoff quarterfinal games.
Yep.
Because I look at we would all love to see them be at home venues because it's fun.
Sure.
Look, the games were all blowouts pretty much at the home venues.
Yep.
But it was still the atmosphere and the electricity was so cool.
Brought something different that I enjoyed.
Yeah, but we know, like everything, every decision is about money. But we'll play a cut here with you. It's Amanda Kristovich, right?
Yep. From
Front Office Sports. She was on Paul Feinbaum. We'll get to that coming up either in the next segment or in what's trending at 2 about the future of that. Could you have the quarterfinals at home, which I'm all for. I'm all for. Like, I understand the money and the bowls and all that stuff, but I'd love to see the quarters go to the home venues. Firehouse Sub Taxi Hour coming up 803-404-6100 as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, halftime show on the game. If I said 2 words to you, would you be interested? Pecan Snickers.
Ooh, I am intrigued by that. Snickers is getting really of interest now. Have you tried some of their newer stuff? They got the fudge brownie. They got the peanut butter Snickers. That's been around for a while.
Yeah, I like the peanut butter Snickers.
They got like an almond one. I haven't tried that yet.
I like the almond. I have not tried the fudge brownie. I like the almond. I like the peanut butter. The pecan is very intriguing.
I prefer to say pecan, but
I say pecan.
we'll differentiate.
Exactly.
That's the Mason-Dixon line talking.
Absolutely. All right, 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Firehouse? Up text the hour.
Our guy Tim says, for those of you just handing the national title to Ohio State, you must be too young to remember what Ohio State did to number 1 Miami and their Heisman Trophy quarterback and the overwhelming talent in the 1986 national championship game. That would have been the 87 Fiesta Bowl. And Vinny Testaverde threw 5 interceptions in that
Against
one.
Penn State?
Against Penn State. I believe that was the last time Penn State won a national championship.
Yep, a masterful defensive job by Penn State that day against that Miami team. Well, I'll go to the Ohio State team that that upset Miami of that controversial pass interference penalty when Trussell got his national championship.
By the way, do you know the yardage in that 1987 Fiesta Bowl off the top of your head?
Go for it.
Miami, 445. Penn State, 162.
Didn't matter. Miami kept turning the rock over and over and over and over.
Penn State quarterback John Schaefer going after Greg McElroy's record here, 53 yards, 1 interception.
Penn State offensively didn't do jack. It was the Penn State defense dominated the game. I remember reading about it afterwards where they talked about the game plan was they basically, dropped in the zone, tried to force Testaverde to be patient and try to make some real tight window throws. And, Miami just kept turning the football over. I remember that game.
I don't remember it. I wasn't alive.
Yeah, you weren't alive.
But I know the lore.
Yep, it was a thing. Nobody thought Miami could lose that game. Nobody.
And, hey, could Ohio State lose? Sure. But if they keep playing like they have the first 2 games, I don't see them losing.
And I'll go to another one. I think Nebraska was ranked number 1 when Miami with Bernie Kosar won the Orange Bowl to win the national championship. I believe Nebraska went for 2 and missed it. I think. It was a long time ago. So, yes, these upsets do happen. The more talented team isn't guaranteed to win. And if Ohio State keeps trucking the way they're trucking, I just don't see how anybody beats them left in the field.
All 4 of these teams are talented. In a 12-team playoff, you're likely not going to get into the semifinals without being a very talented team. But I'd say Ohio State is the most talented of those teams.
I mean, on paper, they got the best. They got one of the best rosters in America coming into the year, and it's the best roster of the Final Four. It's the best roster of the Final Four, and they're playing the best of anybody in the Final Four.
And if they play to their standard and to their level, it's going to be hard to beat.
I'll tell you this. If Texas could ever play to their standard and their level for 60 minutes, that'd be a fun game coming up on Friday.
We saw Texas show that for the first, 5-8 minutes of the Peach Bowl. I thought that was on its way to a blowout. I'm like, man, Texas is going to win this game 63-3.
Remember what Texas did to Clemson in the quarters?
Sure.
And then Clemson made it a 1-score game by the 4th quarter. Texas plays with their food. You play with your food against Ohio State, you go to the hospital with food poisoning. Ohio State will destroy you. If Texas plays the way they played against Arizona State for stretches or against Clemson like they did for stretches, Ohio State will boat race them. It's going to take Texas playing 60 minutes of quality football. Unless, like the texter said, Ohio State starts turning it over. They start stumbling and bumbling around.
Which could happen.
Texas wears the Michigan jerseys.
Yeah.
It's just they are playing at such a high level and they seem so locked in. It's if they play the way they did the first 2 games, it's over.
I know Jim Harbaugh's got his own game to prepare for this weekend, but just fly him in and have him stand on the sidelines.
Him and Connor Stallions.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm not going to be here for what's trending at 2. Are you playing the Justin Herbert?
I'll get to it.
Yeah. By the way, I know this isn't football, but how about Mick Cronin, UCLA head coach? You hear this?
Yes, I did hear that.
Went nuclear on his team.
It's not his fault. He's got 500 wins.
I'm 53 years old. I can't be the toughest guy in the room every day.
It was very Gundy-esque. Message
Yeah.
is a little bit different, but
Yeah. Cronin doesn't have a mullet. But yeah, Cronin.
well, and Gundy was defending his players.
Yes. I think Cronin was doing the opposite. I'm not a fan of the torch my team in front of the microphones.
Yeah. We've said the press conference is usually for the players
And,
sometimes.
boy, hey,
it was.
He didn't hide that one. All I can think is Cronin is a good head coach. He has tried every way he can think of to get these guys to wake up, and nothing else works. He said, "Okay, now I'm going to embarrass you in front of everybody."
Public humiliation's the last resort.
Yes, that's all I can think of.
Yeah.
Because that was that was something. And how about and then the hardball piece you're going to play from Justin Herbert is I'm not going to ruin it right now. That's hilarious.
It's Harbaugh.
It's so hardball.
So Harbaugh.
Now is he just crazy or is he crazy like a fox?
Yes.
I'll be back in a little bit. What's trending at 2 with Tyler next here on the Halftime Show. That was football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. It's a Halftime Show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head, thanks for hanging. We go to 3 on the game.
2 o'clock, welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, along with you. Terry Ford will be back in here in just a couple minutes. It is time for What is Trending at 2. Of course, we're in the midst of conference basketball play for both the men and the women. The women continue conference action tomorrow afternoon, taking on Texas A&M. That game will be a 5 o'clock tip with a 4:30 pregame on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. Unfortunately, the Gamecocks are going to be without Ashlyn Watkins, as the injury that she sustained on Sunday against Mississippi State is indeed one that is going to put her on the bench for the rest of the season. Coach Staley last night on Carolina Calls talked a little bit about Watkins' injury.
Yeah, not often that we've had, injuries like this one. And unfortunately, Ashlyn's out for the rest of the season. I know her sisters will rally around her injury and know that she'll be sorely missed. But I know Ashlyn will want us to go on and compete and try to win another national championship.
And, of course, Ashlyn Watkins, one of the premier players on this Gamecock team. They were without her for a little bit of the beginning of the season while some legal matters were pending that obviously ended up getting dropped. But since she's come back, she's played incredibly well. And the presence of her on the court cannot be understated, particularly when you talk about defense. And I know Chloe Kitts grabs rebounds too, but Ashlyn Watkins, great rebounder, a very aggressive shot blocker too. They call her Ashlyn Swatkins for a reason, because she brings a tenacity on defense that is very, very hard to replicate. But as Coach Staley alluded to there, there's her teammates going to have to rally around her. They're going to have to step up and fill that hole that she leaves behind. And here's her talking as well last night in Carolina Calls about some of the players that are going to have to step up in her absence.
Game, but in practices, they have been increasing their production, and when we look forward to inserting them into the lineup. So I do think Miriam will come around. I think sometimes when you see 6 other players that are in your position, you almost take a back seat. But now this is just 5 now.
Yep.
And that's from 6 to 5. To me, is a big number, because your number can be called more on a game-to-game basis. So I'm looking forward to her. Adele's been ramping up, doing pretty good, and Sakima, I have no doubt. That they'll step up. I have no doubt that everyone will step up and get a little bit more of what Ashlyn, the void that Ashlyn leaves.
And it's probably not going to be one player stepping in and making that difference. It's probably going to be a collection of them. And you heard him talk about Miriam Dowda, Adele Tack, Sakima Walker, again, Chloe Kitts stepping up and grabbing even more rebounds to what she's already doing as the team's leading rebounder. It's going to take a group effort to fill the hole left behind by such a high-level player like Ashlyn Watkins, and certainly wish her the best and hope the recovery goes well, but definitely going to be missed out on the court as this season does indeed roll along. Tonight, the Gamecock men taking on the number 5 Alabama Crimson Tide for their second game of SEC play. Obviously, last time we saw South Carolina, it wasn't great. It was a pretty brutal Saturday in Starkville for those that were either there or watched all 40 minutes of that game. It did not go South Carolina's way at all. Mississippi State steamrolled them, and Carolina doesn't exactly go into this game from a fan base standpoint, I think, instilling a lot of confidence in people. I will say this, tonight's game being in Colonial Life Arena in Columbia is good. As you've watched through the first couple of days of conference play, home teams have done pretty well. So that's something that hopefully plays into South Carolina's advantage for this game coming up tonight. Nate Oates, head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, talking to me the other day, previewing this matchup, talked a little bit about South Carolina and their perimeter defense.
Yeah, no, they do a good job building out. They fly around, they play hard. I mean, Lamont's done a really good job since he's been there. I think he's one of the 4 finalists for National Coach of the Year. I think one of the better things he's done since he's been here is get the team to play really hard. So, schematic-wise, sometimes, like when we didn't give up many threes, when we had Bediako, we drop, play the pick and roll with only 2, and just kind of stay locked on the shooters. They're not quite that way. They don't have a Bediako in the middle, but they'll switch pick and rolls, which you should be able to guard with 2 guys. They'll blitz pick and rolls, which you got to pull a third guy in on that. But when they do that, they seem like they fly around and really try to run you off the line and then just rotate and make it. So I do think we can get the ball moving, if they choose, and I think we can generate some good threes off it, but it's going to be hard. They play hard, but I think the opportunities are going to be there. Some teams we play just refuse, but they will put 2 on the ball voluntarily and try to turn you over, whether it's a blitz and a pick and roll or doubling some stuff, and then they'll just try to fly around, and they do a pretty good job flying around and running you off the line.
It's no secret this is an Alabama team that can score a lot of points. They're coming in off back-to-back 100-point performances against South Dakota State and Oklahoma last week, an Oklahoma team that came to that matchup previously undefeated, and like everybody else in the SEC is thought of as a tournament caliber team, and they went out there and put 107 on them. So their offense is good. However, and as Terry and I alluded to a little bit earlier, this offense is a little bit different in terms of what they are good at. A season ago, when you thought about Alabama basketball, you knew they were really, really good from shooting from the outside. They were 19th in their three-point effectiveness last year, hitting on just over 37% of those. That is not the case this year. Hitting on just shy of 32%, which is 254th in the entire country. There's only 300-some-odd teams that play Division I college basketball. So a severe, severe regression in that area for this Alabama basketball team, which goes into kind of what Nate Oates was saying there. Carolina's going to have to push them to the outside. Carolina's going to have to force them to do what they're not good at. Now, could they go out there and still land a bunch of threes tonight? Sure. The game of basketball is funny like that. You can have good nights, you can have bad nights, you can have on nights, you can have off nights. So even if you push from the outside, maybe they go out there and nail a ton of threes, and maybe they still win the game by a lot of points. But you have to try. You got to push them out there, because when they're inside the arc, they were good at this last year, but they're even better at this year. Their 2-point shooting percentage, it was first yesterday. It's dropped to second in the country now, 63%. That is how good they are shooting inside the arc. So you're going to have to push them to the outside, force them into doing what they've not been doing well this year. And that's going to take physical defense. That's going to take, buckling your chin strap, putting your nose in there, and getting ready for a fight, and putting in maximum effort, which unfortunately for this team this year, as Lamont Paris has alluded to multiple times and did it once again on Saturday after losing to Mississippi State, the effort has been a problem for this team. They have had issues showing up for games. They've had issues really going out there and pushing the pedal to the floor of being aggressive on defense. The North Florida game, perfect example to start the season. What happened on Saturday against Mississippi State, the latest example of that. You're going to have to go out there and show how tough you are tonight. Now, you're going to be doing it without one of your key players in Miles Stute. Not from an injury standpoint, from a blood clot standpoint, which we don't know how long he's going to be out for, but that's a huge blow to this team from an offensive standpoint specifically, and what he brings to the table. So who's going to step up? Is it going to be a Zach Davis, who went out there and had the only one that seemed to put in the effort on Saturday against Mississippi State with his 22 points? How do you fill that hole? How do you fill that void? Because you're in a tough situation right now, having started with as bad a performance you had against Mississippi State. And look, it's not getting any easier. This is the toughest conference in college basketball without question this year. You've already lost Mississippi State. If you lose to Alabama, guess what? You got Auburn coming to town on Saturday. So you don't want to be facing 0-3, right? Because of that it's not the end of the world necessarily. That is really hard to fight your way out of with consistent tournament teams basically filling your schedule from here on out, because pretty much Carolina is about the only team in the SEC that's not thought of as a tournament caliber team as of right now. It doesn't get any easier. And yeah, it's a tough way to start. But if you can go out there and you can beat Alabama tonight, then you can prove to yourself and everybody else that you are up to the task. And again, go back to a couple weeks ago. Clemson came in, a very good Clemson team, and you handled them in that crazy game that was. And Nate Oates in his presser yesterday gave South Carolina the props, and rightfully so, for beating that Clemson team that had already beaten Kentucky. Kentucky fell last night to Georgia. It shows the struggle of teams going on the road in the SEC this year. But tonight, very important. And you got to get off to a fast start, because that's an Alabama team that's going to run up and down the court on you. And if they are in the advantageous situations, they're going to score at will with Mark Sears, with Grant Nelson. These names that these guys that have wreaked havoc on South Carolina before. Mark Sears had 31 points against the Gamecocks last year. He was 6 of 8 from shooting from the outside. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get off to a good start tonight, and don't let this one get away from you, because if you do, Alabama's going to embarrass you in your own gym, and that's the last thing you want from a just optic standpoint, but for the team morale, right? Again, this is a team that we're already questioning the effort of them in some of their games. How much more crushing is it if you get run over for the second game in a row in league play? That's going to be tough to bounce back from. That's going to be really, really hard to bounce back from, and hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully the Gamecocks can get the job done tonight, and we're singing a much happier tune tomorrow. But after what we saw on Saturday, it rightfully has us all concerned. So hopefully tonight's a better story, and we're talking about a huge, huge win this time tomorrow, and roll into the weekend to take on yet another tough opponent in the Auburn Tigers coming to town. They've been cruising through SEC play so far. Bruce Pearl, by the way, getting the most wins in Auburn history last night with their victory over Texas, a very good Texas team as well. So again, doesn't get any easier in the SEC by any means. We'll keep on rolling with what is trending at 2, the future of the college football playoff and where the quarterfinal sites might be. There's an insider that was on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday that had some thoughts and some insight onto what the conversations around that are, as well as what exactly did Jim Harbaugh say that made Justin Herbert raise his eyebrow. With that coming up, it is the Halftime Show. Tyler Head and Terry Ford on your Wednesday on the Game.
Oh, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. All right, Tyler, you teased it, man. Let's get this thing fired up. Amanda Kristovich from Front Office Sports was on Front Office Sports with Paul was on Feinbaum from.
Get out, Terry.
Good God.
Get out.
All right, Amanda Kristovich from Front Office Sports was on Feinbaum talking about what could happen in the future with the college football playoff having the quarterfinals in home venues.
Like, from an operational logistical standpoint, they ran it like a well-oiled machine, and it appeared, I wasn't at the other 3 sites, but it appeared that those other sites, had similar successes. And that was like, sort of everyone seemed to be on board with this on-campus thing. So the only question then becomes, does the CFP really want to get into some sort of maybe contract battle with bowl season and the New Year's Six bowls about, who is going to be hosting these quarterfinals? Maybe that, like you said, that's a 2026 question. But to me, from a logistical standpoint, like, I would be hard-pressed. I would be shocked if there was not some, a big push to move those quarterfinals onto home sites.
I mean, to me, it's just better. And the other part of this, okay, besides it's just better for the game day experience.
Sure.
It's better because if you earn if you're the higher seed, you're earning a home game. That's better for everyone overall. I think it's better, just like for me, even a viewer experience, because the intensity ratchets up so much when the game is played on somebody's home field. Here's the other one, too. How much money you got to keep traveling to all these games?
That's my question. And when you kind of looked at some of the way some of these games were attended, Fiesta Bowl had a lot of empty seats. I think the Peach Bowl had some empty seats. Well, the Rose Bowl is the Rose Bowl, and usually sells out anyway. It looked like the Sugar Bowl was pretty well attended, but man, you're asking, let's just say, the Penn State fan base, and we'll add in that as well because they went to Indianapolis for the conference championship game. Got to play a home game, cool. Mm-hmm. Then they had to go to Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl. They're having to go to South Florida for the Orange Bowl, and then if they win, they have to go to Atlanta for the national championship. That is 4 times traveling within a month, a little over a month.
Not a lot of people have that kind of money.
No, and then you put your fan base in a situation where you're having to strategize. Like, well, I don't want to go to the Fiesta Bowl. I think they're going to go to Miami, so I'm going to save money for that. Oh, darn, they didn't go to Miami. Well, I missed out on a chance to see them in the Fiesta Bowl. You know what I mean? And, like, I don't know how sustainable that is. And I get it. It's about TV money at the end of the day more than anything else, which is the most important. And I said this for a long time. If we were starting college football from scratch and doing a playoff, bowls wouldn't even be a thing for one.
No.
So we've had to move the playoff around the bowl system because it's not going anywhere. A lot of money in it. The cities have a lot of things tied up in it. I get it. It just feels clunky.
Sure it does. I mean, and let's face it. I get the bowl system for years and years and years. I get the traditional bowl games. No one's sitting here taking a dump on all that. But do you still have like a wall phone in your house?
No.
But it's tradition. Your family always had one.
I'll say it wasn't that long ago that we had one, but we don't have one anymore.
No. I had one for a little bit, and every time I rang, it scared the heck out of me.
It's like, nobody knows that number. Who's calling me?
It's like, who do I owe money? The bowl system was great, but now now we've evolved into a playoff. And this idea we've got to continue to try to pretend the bowl system matters. Okay, look, we know the Rose Bowl because the Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah.
But be honest. Now that we've started a college football playoff, even when it was 4 teams, do you remember who won what bowl game?
I actually do because you're a
goober
nerd like that.
Right.
But most people
don't. They don't. Now, I could probably ask you that and then say, by the way, what'd you eat yesterday? And you wouldn't be able to tell me.
Yeah.
Because that's the way this works. So, hey, what's your wife's phone number on her cell phone? I don't know. She's speed dial 3.
I actually really don't know it off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I have to ask for it in the line at Food Lion to put the little discount in.
By the way, I'll tell you this really quick. So my kid has been going out with this girl for like a couple of months, my youngest.
Yep.
He likes her enough, I guess. And the other day I said, so what's her last name anyway?
Didn't get that far, did you, Junior?
It's like, I'm going to tell you a little something.
I bet he knows her Instagram handle.
Oh, absolutely he does. That's my point. I mean, it's just, look, the idea is the bowl system now, it's a dinosaur, and you have to move away from it. I get their power. I get the money. I get all that stuff. But look, at the end of the day, it's time to move on from it.
And, of course, none of the top 4 teams that got buys advanced through. And, again, we can debate, okay, should Arizona State and Boise State have gotten a bye? That's a different conversation. But if I'm Georgia, if I'm Oregon, yes, I got the benefit of resting for an extra week and getting healthy and all that kind of stuff. But also, dang, how much more of an advantage would it have been if I got to play against Notre Dame in Sanford Stadium, or I got to play again against Ohio State out in Autzen Stadium in Eugene? It feels like the teams that did the best by the structure of this bowl system didn't get the same benefit that these other teams got by hosting first-round games.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole thing was, we talked about this earlier, that, the Boise State and Arizona State shouldn't have buys. No offense. They're in they earned their way in the field.
By the way the rules are written.
Yep. I mean, they won their conference
But
championship.
are they one of the 4 best teams? No.
No. And that's where this thing's got to get fixed. And yes, I know Oregon, Oregon got a week off, hosted a neutral, basically was the home team for a neutral site bowl game and got their doors blown off. Do they get their doors blown off in Eugene like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Georgia, does Georgia get there? Does Georgia lose that game in Athens? I don't know.
Yeah.
My point is that's a whole different dynamic.
I'll also say this too. The way the quarterfinals are set up, you have conference tie-ins to bowl games. It used to be with the original 14 playoff, the top seed got geographical preference. So if Georgia was the number 1 team and the Peach Bowl was in the semifinal rotation, guess what? They could play right down the street in Atlanta. So Arizona State, by virtue of being the number 3 or number 4?
Yeah, I think they were 4.
They're 4. Okay. They could have theoretically played in Arizona in the Fiesta Bowl and could have had a game right in their backyard, but instead they had to fly all the way to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. And again, that's not the same thing as having a home game, but even that was taken out of the hands of the top 4 because they were assigned bowl sites before we ever knew who the champions were.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to do the semifinals and the finals at these quote-unquote bowl sites, that's fine. But that round of 8 should still be on campuses too. If you get a bye, you at least should be able to take advantage of that bye by having one home game.
Right.
You just should. So we'll see, because again, we're talking logic and sense, which, by the way, has been kicked to the curb a long time ago.
Again, there's no central formal leader of this. We have a committee of people and a larger committee of people that decide these rule changes and stuff like that. So we got to get all the people in a room. We got to form a committee to put people on the committee to decide the committee that's going to change the rules for the next committee to decide on.
You know who likes committees a lot?
Our country, apparently.
NCAA loves them.
Yeah.
NCAA loves committees. All right, so this is great. Justin Herbert, the LA Charger quarterback, was being asked about Jim Harbaugh, his head coach. Here's Justin Herbert on when he figured out Harbaugh was just a totally different kind of dude.
What was the first time, maybe during off-season workouts or something that Jim said where you were like, this guy's definitely different?
I think when he talked about remembering the day that he was born was probably the first day that he kind of told us the whole story and how he remembered looking out the window, and I think it was a cold, snowy day. And I really hope he does remember that. That'd be pretty cool.
That is so Harbaugh.
Of course he remembers it. Of course he does.
I remember when I was in the womb. It was so warm.
What is your earliest memory? Like, what is the thing you can remember farthest back than anything else?
I was in the womb.
Okay, Harbaugh.
Honestly, for me, I was a little kid. I remember that we were taking some kind of pictures of the family, and I was running around the backyard with our dog Smokey, and we were, playing, and he was running with me, and I tripped and fell and dirtied my really cool suit.
Ooh.
And it's the first day of my life I remembered I got my butt whipped. But no, my earliest memory was I was a really little kid running around with a suit on with the dog in the backyard.
Probably what, 3, 4 years old?
Probably.
Sounds about right.
3, 4, yeah.
I remember my first season playing baseball when I was 4 was sort of in the year 2000, 2001. So it's about 3, 4 years old. Nobody remembers the day they were born.
Ooh, one guy does.
Well, apparently so.
He's such a
And
kook.
like, I can envision how he's telling the team this. Like,
Oh, yeah.
no, not cracking a smile, not laughing, just dead serious. I remember the day I was born. Everybody's probably laughing a little bit, waiting for the gotcha. No gotcha.
No gotcha. And everybody stops giggling or laughing or like
Like,
that
oh,
little
he's for real.
quarter laugh. You know when you do this one?
Yeah.
And then does he walk out of the room and like just start laughing to himself?
No, because he believes it.
He's
Now,
like, he's something else, man.
I almost wonder if there's like a picture, right, of the day he was born, and you can see snow out the window, and like in his mind, he's circumvented this to become a memory of his own. Because there's no way he actually remembers this, right?
Sure, there is. You can remember the day you were born with your nowhere near fully developed newborn mind.
Well, you know what? That's why he has a national championship and I don't. I guess.
Exactly. He's just such a weird guy. But to me, I think he's the best football coach in the country. But
Phenomenal
he's a
football
weird
coach.
guy. Oh my God. And he tells those goofy stories. And like, I'm just trying to picture being in the room for that one. I remember the day I was born. Sure you do, coach.
It's one of those things where all the players probably kind of give each other that look like,
The side eye.
is he serious?
That's what you do.
he
You
for
go,
real?
is this cat telling the truth? Well, what's the deal with this guy? And he's serious. He keeps going.
Yeah.
And there's no jokes.
And it probably was all like a minor detail in whatever he was talking about. Like, whoa. Do you say you remember the day you were born? Yeah, of course.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
It was a cold, snowy day. Then you find his birthday was like June.
It was actually December. He was born in Toledo. So that checks out.
Yeah, that's so fun. He's something else, man. He's something else. All right, that's what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Greatest day in the history of the world. January 8th is coming up. But right now, let's pass out a pair of tickets to the women's basketball game at CLA against Texas A&M tomorrow. 5 o'clock tip. You can hear it on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. Caller number 4. Caller number 4 snags a pair of tickets to go see the women take on Texas A&M tomorrow at CLA. Again, caller number 4 will get those tickets, 803-404-6100. What's trending at 2 is done. Now the greatest day in the history of the world, January 8th. Next here on the game. All right. Greatest day in the history of the world, January 8th. This old school one, we really have to do a whole lot of research or digging. This is just basically an interesting little tidbit of information.
Okay.
On this day in 1972, think about this for a minute. The NCAA announces freshmen will be eligible to play on varsity football and basketball teams starting in the fall.
And I believe every school had a freshman team prior to that.
Yep. Like, the joke was UCLA's freshman team was beating UCLA's varsity team. Remember, Lou Alcindor played freshman basketball.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of great players played freshman basketball because freshmen weren't eligible. Think about that for a minute.
Well, Duke would never have a team.
Today, no.
Yeah, today, no.
Think of Cooper Flagg running around on the freshman team.
God. I've seen some of his high school tape. I could imagine probably look something like that.
You see what he did last night?
Yeah.
How about the angry dunk last night against Pitt?
He's good.
By the way, he leads Duke in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals.
So what's the other guys out there for?
To just watch Cooper Flagg.
To pass the ball to him.
Here, Cooper, here's the ball.
Did you ever play on that, like, maybe really crappy team with a really good player as a kid, and the coach was always like, all right, make sure he gets the ball.
Yeah, everybody get out of his way.
Yeah, don't get in his way and let him do what he's going to do, and maybe he'll bring you sorry schlubs along with him.
You suck. Just follow the really good kid. That's Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg's phenomenal.
Yeah, looks like it.
Well, remember this. This is the asinine stuff. You think about that for a minute. I shouldn't say that's asinine. I understand. You want them to get acclimated on campus, give them a year with no pressure, let them get used to everything, blah, blah, blah. I understand that. But looking back on now, it looks so silly.
By the way, if NIL was legal back then, which it is illegal, they just weren't doing it, that's a lawsuit because you're affecting their earning potential by not playing on the varsity team.
What does that mess with, Tyler?
Antitrust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the other one that was so silly in that point in time. Just dumb. Dunking was illegal.
Really?
Yeah. You couldn't dunk
for the showmanship?
Early 70s, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why. It was dumb.
Are there people that get upset when they see dunks now?
Oh, it aggravates everybody.
Like the people that get upset about bat flips. Okay, fine, sure. I know why you're getting upset, but I've never thought of dunks as upsetting to someone.
I don't know. I can't remember. I just read about it. Again, this is early 70s. That you couldn't dunk. You'll see like video or pictures of guys like Bill Walton and David Thompson above the rim dropping the ball in.
Would you get called for like goaltending or something?
If you dunked?
If you dunked?
Probably. You probably got a whistle, a technical foul.
That's
I
hilarious.
guess it was a technical foul.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It was just asinine. And when they finally reversed it, that's when Louisville, with Darrell Griffin, who at the time was called the Doctor of Dunk, Dr. Dunkenstein, and the Louisville Cardinals were the Doctors of Dunk, and they won the NCAA championship in the 70s. And everybody was so, oh my God, this dunking thing's so cool. Now, again, it reached even a bigger peak with Houston, with Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon and Mr. Mean, Larry Michaud, and all those guys, when they had like 1 billion dunks when they got upset by NC State.
Yep.
But, I mean, yeah, the idea that the dunk was outlawed is so stupid.
Well, it's like, I can't think of another sport that would intentionally restrict, because you got to be athletic to dunk. You got to be able to jump. You got to be able to obviously hold and dunk the ball. I can't think of another sport that intentionally restricts the athleticism of a play. You know what I mean?
You think those guys were all jealous who did the rule because they couldn't dunk?
Yeah, it was a bunch of short guys that didn't have any hops. Like, well, if we can't do it, nobody can do it.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't put it past the NCAA.
From 1967.
They had a committee of people.
Oh, sure. They had
together.
A committee.
All the guys were like 5'3".
They couldn't dunk. From 1967 to 1976, high school and college players are outlawed from dunking.
5'3" guys that got cut from their high school basketball teams.
Just
bitter.
Bitter. It's unbelievable. I'm trying to find what the reasoning behind that stupidity was. Someone says one of the people interviewed in this said, quote, the people who made that decision probably never played basketball before. Probably not.
Probably not. Well, it's like some of these rules in football.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, if you ever put on a helmet and shoulder pads, you probably would understand that's not a good rule.
By the way, first time a dunk was thrown down in a game, 1944. recorded by Bob Kirkland, 7-foot center, Oklahoma A&M.
He didn't have to jump very high.
No, not really.
I wonder what the reaction was when he did that.
Oh, you want to hear this?
Sure.
According to, Satch Sanders played for the Celtics and everything else. Sanders said if a player went up for a dunk back in those days, defenders would try to injure him by running under his legs as soon as he left his feet. Basically undercut him.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems to be more on them than the guy trying to dunk.
It's just
That's
crazy.
why you assess technical fouls, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think.
I'm just trying to find the whole idea of what this no dunk rule was, why they did it. While the rule makers who outlawed the dunk said they did so because it caused injuries and did not display basketball skill.
Okay. I'll disagree with you on that one.
Alrighty. Yeah. Wow.
I'm not sure what could emphasize basketball skill more than jumping and dunking a basketball.
I mean, because isn't athletic skill part of the game?
It's supposed to be. Except for the committee of short guys that
We're
couldn't dunk.
bitter. All right. Also, greatest day in the history of the world, 1984. A smart move by the NCAA. The executive committee votes to expand the NCAA championship to 64 teams starting in 1985.
And it's been perfect since then. Don't touch it.
Yeah, they're going to, you know and I know it's going to happen. They're going to expand it to 1 billion teams so they can make more money. And it's just, I like it at 64.
I do too. I've seen proposals of if you do expand it, you're only expanding the play-in, which I don't have as much of a problem with that. If you want to make it a process to get in the field of 64, okay. But in terms of like the structure of what we know the tournament to be, don't change that.
Don't screw a 64.
You want 12 teams in a play-in? Sure, that's fine. But if I'm the number 1 seed, I shouldn't play more games.
No.
Play what you have.
And what I loved about 64 is there's no buys. It's a level playing field. Everybody's got to win. Someone's got to win 7 games.
Yes.
And nobody gets any kind of advantage. Everybody is playing the same amount. I like that. All right. In the year 2000, Lou Alcindor had the Pac-10 record for points in a game. Eddie House. Now, Eddie House is a good college player and hung around in the NBA for a long time. Eddie House scored 61 to tie Lou Alcindor's Pac-10 record. Now, again, if you're thinking about all the great players who played Pac-10, Pac-12, Pac-8, whatever basketball, you would never think Eddie House has tied the great Lou Alcindor
Right.
for
Sure.
the conference.
Sure, he could dunk.
Eddie House?
Yeah.
I don't know. He was just kind of a small guy.
See if I
Lou
can find it on
Alcindor could
YouTube.
dunk.
Well, yeah, I know that.
No, he couldn't back then. He was playing when you couldn't dunk.
But he could.
He just wasn't
not
allowed.
allowed to.
How stupid. It's just all so stupid. 2007, Ohio State and Florida play for the national championship. Number 2, Florida dominates Ohio State 41-14. Remember, Ohio State had the Heisman Trophy winner,
Yes, they did.
Troy Smith.
Yep. Who he get drafted?
Yeah, he
Was
played for the
He was
Ravens.
with the Ravens for a little bit, but that was back when short quarterbacks were sin in the NFL, and nobody would even think twice about it. Now Kyler Murray's running out there as the number 1 overall pick, and
Yep.
boy, our perception has changed a lot, hasn't it?
Until we want to use it against like somebody like
sure.
Bryce Young.
Oh, he's too short. It's like there's a 4'11" guy out there.
Exactly. All right. 4'11".
But that started the run of dominance for the SEC because the prior 2 years, no SEC team had played for the national championship.
Yep. And then after, and look, I remember watching that game and just the difference in athleticism and physicality and speed from Florida compared to Ohio State was night and day. It was night and day. 2008, Goose Gossage becomes the 5th relief pitcher elected to the Hall of Fame. He was elected because he scared the hell out of all the writers.
Sounds fair.
He threatened to throw 98-mile-an-hour fastballs at all of them. Gossage was intimidating looking, man.
Big guy.
He was intimidating looking. But yeah, he was a great reliever. He was an unbelievable relief pitcher. And that's my thing about specialization. Like, people don't want to put DHs in the Hall of Fame because, oh, he's a part-time player. No, he's not. He's in the lineup. It's a position in baseball. You have to treat it as such. Well, relief pitcher, that's no, stop now. Relief pitchers are important. So, anyway, by the way, this day in 2011, Marshawn Lynch ran over the New Orleans Saints.
I remember it well.
All right, we'll wrap this baby up. Firehouse Sub Text the Hours next on the halftime show in the game. All righty, 803-404-6100. Let's get our Firehouse Sub text of the hour there. Tyler Head, what do you got, bub?
Nameless texter weighs in and says it was outlawed in reference to the dunking rule because Lou Alcindor could dominate a game and there was no other players at the time that could do it. So not only dominate the game, nobody could stop him. So
Well,
apparently to slow him down.
Also, they said like Wilt Chamberlain could dunk from the free throw line.
I believe that.
I could too.
Is there video evidence of that?
There's no video evidence of a lot of things Wilt Chamberlain
I'm
could do.
just saying I need to see the proof.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I can dunk from the free throw line. There's no video evidence of it, but I can.
But
Yeah,
is the free throw line like 1 foot from the hoop at your place?
No,
Is it one of those play hoops that you get for little
Yeah,
kids?
exactly. You dunked it in the living
Yeah.
room.
10
dunked
foot
over your kids.
10-foot free throw line, 8-foot hoop. Counts.
By the way, and this always happens at the gym. Like whenever you're at the gym, for the little kids, they'll bring the hoop down to 6 feet.
Yeah,
Then everybody turns into MJ, right?
it's fun, man.
Everybody's Giannis.
it's fun.
It's like the best thing in the world.
I actually did not mean to, but a few years back when my nephew, who's now like 6'5" and is going to probably end up being like 6'8", but when he was younger at my in-laws' place, they had a little basketball hoop for him, and it was at 8 feet. And I didn't realize that it was not the sturdiest of attachments.
Uh-oh.
And so we were just having fun, right? Or so I thought. And it was like 8 feet. And I grabbed a hold of it, man.
Oh, that did not end well for
And
you?
it was Jerome Lane.
Oh, was it really?
It wasn't glass, thank God. It was wood. It was wood, but I mean, it. And I was like, oh God.
Did you go flying too?
It's one of those when you don't think you're going to land the way you end up landing.
Oh God.
Yeah, my father-in-law was not real happy with me, and I was like, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Now, are you planning on doing like pull-ups on the rim after you threw it down, or,
No,
or what?
I just kind of hung there for a
jumped
second.
and grabbed it,
That's
right?
all.
I mean-
and man, it came right off.
Because that's the thing. When you see it, you go, oh my God, I think I can actually grab that.
Yeah,
You
but-
jump up just to grab it.
But before you Carolina fans want to like rag on me, I do want you to know that it had a Clemson Tiger paw on the backboard.
Oh, they're so good.
So
you broke that?
there was at least
Nice
some
work. Give me
good
some.
that was accomplished
There
on
you
that
go.
day,
There
and
you
it was
go.
not replaced with one that had a Clemson Tiger paw on it.
So really, you had a plan.
Yeah,
Nice job.
I
had a plan?
I didn't want to admit until right now at what time is it? At like 2:52.
I think the statute of limitations have passed.
Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know.
He might make you replace it
I
now.
don't know.
By the way, our handoff with the post-game show and our buddy Jay Phillips, sponsored by Little
Yeah, I
Pigs on
apologize
Alpine.
for coming in right as the commercial break ended because I had to turn around, and I did today. So if y'all had a running bet, y'all lost.
Oh.
But I did remember Elijah's.
Did you bring him his Christmas gift?
his gift? Yes.
Nice.
Well, when you walk in as the segment's starting, we call that Wes Mitchelling
Oh, cool.
because Terry did that today to start the show.
He's got a gift.
Well,
Wes will walk in.
If Terry comes in when the show actually begins,
I know it's crazy.
because in the couple of years that I did it, it was usually 12:06.
He's gotten a little better. It's like 12:04 now.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
I'm
We
working on
we
it.
actually have listeners that place bets every day
That's
at
good.
work about
Yeah, hey.
how late he's going to be.
Every now and then I pop on time just so somebody loses their
Next
money.
thing you know, on Elijah's Prize Picks thing, it'll be like, and by the way, a new segment.
Get over under.
There's that.
So yeah, we were talking about the reason we brought up the Duncan thing was on this day in 1972, freshmen were finally allowed to play varsity football and basketball
Yeah.
on collegiate level on this
Yeah.
day in 1972. So you and I, we're not that old because freshmen were playing when we were kids. We never saw freshmen not play.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I see me either. I remember seeing freshmen play.
That would have made me if that
Really
was
old.
yeah, that would have made me well. I guess when it was implemented in a school year, that would have still made me 1.
Yeah, so we saw freshmen playing
Yes.
for our lifetime. But it was a thing. And then that led me to the dunking was against the rules. Because you see those pictures of like David Thompson with his elbow over the rim and he's just dropping the ball in because he can't dunk it.
I have I appreciate that Tyler had someone that sent in, which is probably a legitimate thing, but that's not why they did it.
Well, the one we just read.
Well, that's the tinfoil hat version.
Yeah.
That's not.
Well, the one also, we've read this because a guy that played for the Celtics in the 60s, Satch Sanders, said one of the ways they were combating the guys who could dunk is when those guys would go in the air to dunk, they'd undercut them.
Yeah.
So part of it was to prevent injury because dudes are like, oh, you want to dunk? Good. All right. Go ahead, dude. 60 stitches in your head when you land on the floor.
You think you could have just assessed a foul to those guys instead of outlawing dunking?
No, Tyler.
In the same time frame in the National Football League, you could clothesline guys, and you could horse collar. And,
Oh, well, remember, there was no pass interference if the ball wasn't in the air back in the You could beat the heck out of those dudes.
Yeah.
So we've done all right.
Hey, we're okay. What do you got coming up there, man?
We're going to talk a little football, good signing. We got some interesting NCAA look-ahead news, basically why it's not going to get fixed.
All right, good deal.
Yeah.
Post-game show, Jay and Elijah come next. Tyler, good work, my friend. Halftime show. We'll do it again tomorrow at noon here on The Game.